Pretty much all of us have something we'd like to change about ourselves. We make New Year's resolutions, we buy the books, we get all fired up. But what if the whole way we think about self-improvement is, well, a little off? That's what we're going to do here. We're going to dig a little deeper and try to build a real philosophy of change, one that goes beyond the usual feel-good cliches.
So let's just dive right in with a question from author Mark Manson that kind of flips the whole script. It's not what do you want to enjoy? Nope, it's what pain do you want in your life? What are you willing to struggle for? Seriously, let this one sink in, because it is the absolute key to everything we're about to talk about. Okay, so why is it so hard to change, even when we really, really want to? Well, it turns out the first big roadblock is often inside our own heads. Let's pull back the curtain on a couple of the hidden obstacles our brains throw in our path, usually without us even noticing.
First up, we've got this sneaky little thing called loss aversion. The psychology here is just fascinating. Basically, scientists have found that losing $10 feels about twice as bad as finding $10 feels good. Isn't that wild? What this means in real life is that we'll often cling to a bad situation, like a job we hate or a habit we know is bad for us, not because we like it, but because the fear of losing that familiar thing feels way more intense than the possible joy of finding something better.
And then you've got its partner in crime, confirmation bias. See, our brains just love being right, so they actively go out and look for evidence that proves what we already believe, while conveniently ignoring anything that might challenge us. Think about it. If you believe deep down that you're just not a morning person, your brain goes into detective mode, highlighting every single time you feel groggy at 6 a.m. But it'll totally forget that one Tuesday you woke up feeling fantastic. It's like a mental filter that keeps us running in the same old circles.
So yeah, it sounds like our brains are kind of working against us, right? But here's the good news. It's not a lost cause. Now that we know what we're up against, we can start talking about solutions. It's time to open up the Change Toolkit and look at a few practical, proven models for actually building better habits.
You've probably heard of this one. It's from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and it's brilliant because it's so simple. It's all about reverse engineering how habits work. If you want to build a good habit, you just follow these 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And the beauty of it is, if you want to break a bad habit, you just flip the script. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. It's a really powerful system for designing the change you want to see.
Okay, here's another awesome tool for your toolkit. BJ Fogg's model gives us this dead simple formula. Behavior happens when 3 things come together at the same moment: motivation, ability, and a prompt. That's it. So if a new habit just isn't sticking, you know that one of those 3 things is the problem. You can ask yourself, is my motivation just too low? Is this thing actually too hard for me to do right now? Or am I just missing a trigger to remind me to do it? It's a fantastic little diagnostic tool.
All right, so we've got these great models, and it's super tempting to just run out, grab the first self-help book you see, and conquer the world, right? Well, hold on a second. Before we do that, we need to talk. We have to take a critical look at the whole self-help industry, because it can be a real minefield.
You know the ones I'm talking about, right? These giant, flashy titles promising you immediate total control over your entire destiny. I mean, these authors make some truly grandiose claims about how you can have this rapid, complete transformation. These huge promises are the industry's bread and butter. But do they actually deliver?
So, what does the actual science say? Well, when researchers look into whether these books work, it's a field called bibliotherapy, the results are, let's say, complicated. The thing is, yes, some people are helped by some books, but the studies themselves have some major limitations. They're often really small, they tend to focus on people with pretty minor issues, and the people in the studies are volunteers who are already super motivated to change. So what works in that kind of controlled environment might not work the same way for the rest of us out in the real world. And here's a really interesting wrinkle. What about the core values these books push? Let's take grit, that idea of perseverance, right? It's everywhere. But as some critics have pointed out, things like grit are just tools. They're not inherently good or bad. You can use perseverance to build a hospital, sure, but you can also use it to build a criminal empire. As one critic famously said, it is possible to be a gritty villain. Being good at something isn't the same as being a good person.
So you might be thinking, what's the big deal? A little over-the-top motivation can't hurt, right? Well, actually it can. When these books promise you the moon and, surprise, surprise, you don't get there overnight, it can lead to something psychologists call false hope syndrome. Instead of feeling empowered, you just end up feeling frustrated, like you're a failure. And the worst part is, you might just give up on trying to change altogether.
And that right there, that whole idea of false hope syndrome, it points to a massive flaw in how we usually approach change. Maybe the problem isn't just our methods, maybe it's our entire mindset. And this brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. We need a total reframe. We have to stop chasing pleasure and start instead consciously choosing our pain.
Let's make this real. Mark Manson uses a couple of killer examples. We all want the result, right? We want to be the rock star on stage or have that amazing beach body. But we conveniently forget that every single result has a process, a struggle bolted to it. The rock star also has to be the person hauling 40 pounds of gear into a smelly club for rehearsal. The person with the beach body has to learn to actually appreciate the feeling of sweat and sore muscles at the gym. You simply cannot have the shiny outcome without embracing the messy struggle. And all of this boils down to one single powerful idea. The quality of your life is not determined by the quality of your positive experiences, but the quality of your negative experiences. Let that sit for a second. In other words, who you become isn't defined by the good times you seek, but by the challenges you are willing and able to endure to get there.
Okay, so if the secret sauce is choosing your struggle, then the next logical question is, how? And the thing is, there's no magic bullet. There's no one-size-fits-all plan. This last part is all about figuring out what works for you and you alone.
And sometimes the tools for the job are, well, they're not what you'd expect. Take this wild technique from Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. It's called paradoxical intention. It works like this. Say you have a deep fear of sweating in public. Instead of fighting it, you do the opposite. You intentionally try to do it. You literally say to yourself, okay, today I am going to show these people what sweating really looks like. By leaning into the fear, and especially by using humor, you rob it of its power over you.
Which brings me to maybe the most important point of all. Your mileage will vary. And there is no better way to show this than by looking at one of the biggest self-help books on the planet, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and just seeing the wildly different ways people react to it.
For some people, this book is nothing short of a revelation. One person on Reddit put it simply, life-changing for me. My life did a 180. For them, the message landed at exactly the right time in exactly the right way.
For others, yeah, not so much. Here's a completely different take. It just becomes repackaged Buddhism with some real hippie metaphysical nonsense at the end. This person saw it as unoriginal and, well, nonsensical. Same book, polar opposite experiences.
And then you have what might just be the most common and relatable experience of all. I haven't made it through one of his books yet. Sometimes a message, no matter how profound it is for millions of other people, just doesn't click with you. And you know what? That is perfectly fine.
So what's the point of showing you all this? It's that there is no magic book. There is no perfect guru. There is no one system that's going to work for everybody. The tools are all out there, but you are the only one who can decide which ones to pick up and how to use them. Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, to the only question that really truly matters. So what struggle will you choose?